Alright, so I thought I'd add a couple of just general tips. No spoilers, don't worry. That's one of the best parts of the game, actually, is discovering all sorts of stuff for yourself. But there are a couple things that'll kind of help you along your way. So, firstly, a couple of just gameplay things. There are certain instances where you are invincible. I mentioned rolling before. So during the roll animation, you are invincible and you cannot be hit by attacks. That being said, if you land and are still being hit by an attack, you will take full damage. But there are a couple of other moments where you do gain temporary invincibility. If you're opening large doors, you'll notice this by your character using both hands to push doors open. While you're pushing those doors open, you cannot be interacted with. So, if you are up against a particularly tough enemy, or you're running from an enemy, you can use that moment to open those doors and get a breath, I suppose. Then, a couple of other things. Operating levers, you'll be invincible. There are a couple of little moments where if you're interacting with the environment, you may be invincible for a few seconds as the character model completes the animation. Just a little something to know. As far as NPCs go, you'll see a lot of them around you. That little guy up in the chair up there is very important. He'll allow you to make boss weapons. So when you kill a boss, you will receive a special soul item from that boss, and you can transpose it into a special weapon. All of these weapons are by no means necessarily more powerful than other weapons in the game. They're just unique and interesting and specific to that boss. Then I would like to say too, when it comes to NPCs and people you see around the world, interact with them and exhaust their dialogue options. Do that by going up to them and just tapping the button to go through their dialogue. One, it's usually pretty interesting and you get some insight into the character and the world. But two, they might give you some keys or clues as to where to go next, and they might even give you items. So that can be quite cool. Be sure to listen to whatever they may have to say, and upon coming back to the shrine, talk to them again. Maybe something you did out in the world changed them somehow, and you can get new dialogue options or potential for new items. Next, I wanted to have a look at some pretty useful items that you can get that will really help you out. Number one is an ember. This is a pretty key item in the game. And what it will do is it will give you a large health boost, and it will also leave you in an online state in the game world. What that means is that you will be able to summon outside players to come help you. There are some NPC that you can summon as well to help you with bosses or tough areas, but it also leaves you open to invasion. So players can invade your world if you have an ember active. You can always see when you have an ember active if you look at the top left-hand corner and you see that octagon that is filled with embers and dirt. That will be lit up the way it is now when you're embered, and it will be gray and dull if you're not embered. Now, if you're having trouble with phantoms, those are the invaders. If you're having trouble with them invading your world from other players doing it, you can always play the game in offline mode to get a little bit of reprieve. It depends on who you see and where you see them, because someone can invade you almost anywhere in the game. They can't invade you during a boss battle, and if you enter a boss room, that invading phantom will be sent home. They can't do anything to you. So that's something to keep note of. Embers are very, very important. They can be very expensive, and they are limited, so gather them and hold on to them. Then we've got this one here, one of my personal favorites, Homeward Bone. This will return you to the last bonfire you've been to, or to the shrine bonfire here. without taking away the souls you have accumulated so far. So let's say, you know, you're about out of Estus, right? You got one left, and you don't know where the next fire is, or you know where it is, but it's through a whole bunch of tough enemies, and you don't want to go through that again, and you've got all sorts of souls, you don't want to lose them. You can just use a homeward bone, and it will take you either to the last bonfire, if you want to go there, or to the shrine bonfire, so you can use those souls to level up, or buy items, or whatever. I did mention last time some specific items for upgrading. There's this one, an Estus Shard, which will give you a further use of your Estus Flask. So to start the video, I think I had 7 or something, but if I add this Estus Shard at the blacksmith, I will then have 8 uses of my Estus Flask. You can find several Estus Shards around the world, and there's another item called Undead Bone Shard. This one will increase the potency of the fire. So if you go to rest, you hit Burn Undead Bone Shard. I have none in my inventory at the moment, but it will burn it, and you will see bonfire level will go up. And what that means is whenever you do use your Estus, it will replenish more with the more undead bone shards you've burnt. It's a permanent effect, so you don't have to worry about time or anything like that. And next, you'll find soul items. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any in my inventory right now, but they're named things like Undead Hero's Soul, or Soul of a Proud Knight, or Soul of an Unknown Undead, things along those lines. Those are effectively souls that can be kept in your inventory, and you will not lose them when you die. So I would advise that you wait till you get to here, either Firelink Shrine or somewhere where you're waiting to spend those souls. Use them here where it's safe, and you can use them to level up or buy items. Then, when it comes to bosses and enemies in general, some of them will have certain resistances or vulnerabilities. So if you're having trouble with a boss, like let's say I'm using this sword that causes frostbite. If I use this against a certain boss, maybe the boss is immune to frostbite, and I'm not going to get the best use out of this sword. Try using something else. There are plenty of items like these resins here that can apply a certain damage type to your weapon for a short amount of time, like dark damage or lightning or fire and so on. You can test those out and try to find the bosses and vulnerabilities. The same goes for certain enemy types all around the world. There are some of them that are vulnerable to certain types. Now, when it comes to bosses and summoning in help, just be wary that the boss will become tougher. They'll get more health, and their attacks will deal more damage if you have someone helping you with that boss. That being said, you'll also have someone there with you, and you guys can go back and forth, distracting the boss, and you'll be able to get good hits in on it. Now, you will also be splitting the souls gained for killing that boss with whoever is helping you. You will not get the full souls for the boss, as you're not killing the boss alone. Then I would also say, if you see any walls or things that look kind of like doorways, hit them, or try and roll through them. They might be an illusion. You never know, and you might find some cool items behind them. Also, I would advise you to hit chests, because, well, you'll see. Then, you'll also see these little creatures, small blue crystal things. They're called crystal lizards, and they'll drop gems or upgrade items. They'll try to run away from you, and they will eventually disappear if you let them go. But a good technique to get them to stop moving is run after them and do a jump attack like this. That jump attack will stagger it and flip it over, and you can go to town on it. and effectively kill it and gain whatever item it's carrying. Now, if you do miss a crystal lizard, don't worry. You can simply quit out, reload the game, and the crystal lizard will reload as well. So you'll get another chance to get it. And also worthy of note with the crystal lizards, if they run off a ledge to their death, you will automatically get whatever item they had on them. So don't worry, you don't have to jump after them into the abyss or anything. They'll just drop off, and you'll shortly see afterwards that you'll get an item that will pop up on screen. One thing, too, to note is certain areas look particularly dangerous. Maybe they're hard to navigate with lots of tough enemies around them, and that usually means really good treasure. So keep that in mind. If you can find a way to easily navigate the area or try to circumvent certain enemies, you may find that it is a big reward once you get some key items. One thing, too, when dealing with enemies to remember is it's best to try and take them on one or two at a time. Don't run in and then try and kill everybody. That's a great way to die. If you go up to one of them, wait until it gets aggroed towards you, so it starts coming towards you, then back up, deal with that enemy one-on-one, and then move on to the next one. It's slow and steady, but it's a great way to ensure survival in certain tough areas. Also worthy of note is, at times you will see that there are areas that you can drop off. Now, this is not a good example, as there's, you can just take the stairs, but you can drop off at certain areas and land. You may take some damage, but there may also be some treasure down there. You never know. Then, as a general hint, I would say, don't get fed up when you die. Why did you die? What happened? Was it a particularly tough enemy? Maybe change your play style or the weapon you're using, or perhaps you need to go in another direction. But the other bit of good news is, you may be able to fight those enemies again, although it may seem frustrating. They may have some cool item drops that you didn't get the first time. And you may find that certain tough enemies will drop some very, very cool items. So don't be afraid to just look around as well. Discover what the world has. There's so many secrets in this game. Just search, search, search. If an area looks like you can walk somewhere, drop somewhere, climb somewhere, run and jump somewhere, you probably can. So definitely check that out. Don't be afraid to discover that. And then again, too, if you are dealing with a tough area where you died a bunch of times and you really don't feel like fighting the enemies, you can just run. Just run straight past them to the next area. The enemies won't follow you forever. Some might, but typically they'll get bored and they'll wander back to the areas where they're used to pathing, and you should be fine. Anyhow, I hope this helped out. Just some general tips to help the game become a little easier.